marry me?
It was like an out-of-body experience.
Cyclone. One more time.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
This is happening in real
I
life.
felt so happy. Tell me something I don't know,
It
Dad.
really surprises you.
Absolutely. Well, I can see you're welcome back.
I want to get married in 6 months.
This is true love. I think this happens every day.
Welcome to Dear Future Bride. Today's guest is Rachael. Rachael planned a wedding with heart, style, and one hell of a plot twist. A broken leg just weeks out that could have derailed everything, but she kept going. In this episode, we talk about pressure, perspective, and the parts no one warns you about. Her honesty is the kind every future bride needs to hear. Welcome, Rachael.
Good morning.
So you broke your leg just weeks out from the wedding. How did that shift things, not just logistically, but emotionally?
I did. So I'll give you a bit of backstory just for the listeners. Basically 6 weeks out from the wedding, I was rushing down the stairs and took a tumble and landed on my leg. Completely snapped it in one place, fractured in another, and had to go straight into surgery. So I got plated and screwed back into place. And that was all 1 week out from my hands. So it completely shifted everything that we were doing, mostly from the fact that I was non-weight bearing for pretty much that entire 6 weeks. So in the lead up to the wedding, we didn't even know whether I'd be able to walk down the aisle. And it wasn't until about a week out that I was told I could. So that was probably the most grueling time in between not only breaking the leg, but also finding out that I could walk. I think there were times where we considered postponing because it was just not the day that I dreamed of. I always dreamed of dancing around and partying like an idiot and running around with my new husband. But yeah, I almost just had to completely change the vision that I had in my head for the day.
So you were happy to wait until a week before the wedding to make that call on postponing, or were you starting to put things into place to postpone the wedding because you just didn't know if you could put any weight on it?
Good question. I think we were really winging it. It was pretty much as we were coming out of the hospital at the point that I initially did it, where we said, oh God, I don't know what we want to do. So obviously we leaned heavily on you to be our guide in that time. You rang around and spoke to every vendor and thought of every possible way that we could make it work and give us options, which was just incredible in itself. But yeah, we kind of went on the fact that we would go ahead with it because a lot of my family was from Victoria, so they'd all booked their travel and booked their holidays around it and were all so excited. So I think we went ahead with the fact that we have so many beautiful people around us that were showing us so much love during that time. And I think if we went ahead, it still would have been an incredibly special day because we had everyone and our beautiful families with us. So we went ahead thinking that we'll find some sort of solution in the lead up. I think a couple of options that we had. There was a golf buggy that was loaned from our friends, which was perfect so we could get around the gorgeous Earth House venue. Walking down the aisle, we thought of having both my mum and my dad on either side and just propping me up. And the third option, which was probably the least stunning option, was this knee scooter that I had at the time. I was just rolling around the house with this big chunky boot on, and I said, worst case scenario, we'll just scoot down the aisle. Yeah, not very sexy, but would have done the trick, I think. Yeah, we were both just excited and loved the time of year and loved everything that we had set up. So I think we just went ahead and hoped for the best.
And then at the end of the day, you were able to walk down the aisle in your moon boot, which was amazing.
I even went without the moon boot. So
oh, that's right.
Yeah. So the week out, the surgeon was like, yeah, cool. Like, you're good to go. And I said, is that it? Like, you don't want to test or do anything else? Like, you're just going to give me the okay and hope for the best? And he said, yeah. So he said, you can try with or without the boot. So in the couple of days leading up, we tried both. We got down to the villa that we had hired out for a couple of days before the wedding. And luckily, one of my gorgeous bridesmaids, Abby, is a physio. So she was just coaching me along the whole way, trying to show me how to walk again and to put weight on it in such a way that's going to feel okay on the day. So I had my sneakers that I wore for the day and just kept practicing in those. We tried ankle braces and strapping and everything just to make it work. So, and we did. And yeah, both Abby and Liam were there just helping me walk.
And how is your mindset with that? Obviously, with this incident, I remember at the time it was devastation. It was like this dream day that we've been planning, and then this thing happened, right? And it feels like it's crumbling around you. You've got this image of what your wedding will look like. Then healing too. You're trying to manage all of these things. How is your mindset throughout in the weeks leading up to it, and how were you on the day itself? Were you able to let go and fully enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I think in the lead up before that 1 week out when the surgeon gave me an okay, I was really struggling, to be completely frank with you. I was really upset, and it was almost mourning this vision of the day that I had. Like, I always dreamt of the gorgeous white dress, and I had these beautiful heels picked out. They were stunning, and I was so excited to wear them. So to pack them up in a box and return them actually really broke my heart. So it was just that sense of mourning over this dream day, and the lead up to it. But then I think I had this instant shift from that 1 week out, from the point where the surgeon said, yeah, no worries, go ahead, where it came back to me at that point. Like, I could put a bit of weight on it and it was feeling a lot better. I'd done the hard work in terms of healing. And I switched. I became so excited for the day. There was a particular video on TikTok that I was absolutely clinging to at the time. It was another girl who'd broken her leg a couple of weeks out from the wedding, and her day was just stunning. It was everything that I envisaged myself, but to see it with someone else who had a similar thing, I actually just really clung to that. Yeah, so I think that did a lot for my mindset. And again, the people around me had so much support. In the lead up, I was one of those crazy brides that signed up to do a whole bunch of DIY myself, and of course left it till the last minute. So about 3 weeks out from the day, I had all of the beautiful people in my life. Everyone just came around and helped out, because we had to print out menus, because they decided I wanted to do that myself, and candles and signage, and God, there were so many DIY pieces that then we were all just pulling together, hoping that it would all work.
At the time, you ran your own creative business. Did that make you feel more pressure for the wedding to look a certain way?
Yes and no. I think I take a lot of pride in my creative brain. So I'll have a particular vision of something that I want. And I think the reason that I did a lot of DIY was because I either couldn't find something that looked the way it did in my head, or it was too expensive. So it was almost bringing that champagne taste and beer budget.
On a beer budget.
Kind of being able to, it was trying to balance that. So I think I definitely don't regret doing a lot of that DIY stuff myself. I think the people around me will say they regret me making that decision, given they ended up having to help me with a lot of it. But no, I think a lot of it ended up being the vision that I had in my head, along with everything I selected with you as well. It kind of all brought it together.
Did you have a clear vision from the beginning, when obviously you have a very creative brain? Was there that clear vision, or did it just evolve once you started diving down the rabbit hole?
I did not have a clear vision in my head, and I think that was probably the most painful part of the wedding process, is not being able to land on a specific look and feel of what I wanted. I loved so many different ideas and so many ways that it could look. It was a lot of decision paralysis. It felt really overwhelming at that point in time, because I felt like whatever I chose or whatever I went with was a defining factor, or almost became my identity, because there is so much publicity around it. Like, there's so many photos, and of course those photos stay with you for life. And I was so overwhelmed and overcome by that thought of what my wedding choices said about me, that I had a lot of decision paralysis, and I changed the theme and the look and feel a couple of times.
And the image that you landed on, when you were going through the chopping and changing and when you finally chose that style, how close was it to the actual wedding day itself?
It was very close. So there was one particular point in time I remember landing on one theme. It was gold and it was beige and it was whites and it was very almost like luxe in that kind of sense where it felt very champagne in the way that it was, because what I was aiming for was something timeless, something that I wouldn't regret because I was having so much trouble making a decision. I just wanted something that was easy at that point. And I remember particular point in time where I was showing my cousin the mood board and what it looked like. And I remember looking at it holistically from the point of view of someone else and being like, that isn't me. Like, why on earth did I pick all of these things? Like, I love them, don't get me wrong, but it's just not me at all. So from that point, I started kind of tinkering with, okay, what is me? Who am I again? And I thought about all of the different colors that I love. I love yellows. I love blues. I love greens. I love that pastel palette with the pops of color. Something very Italian, which is very much what Earth House was as well. It's why we fell in love with the venue, was because it was just stunning in the way that it felt super Tuscan, and also that gorgeous pressed earth. But yeah, it was all of your citrus colors. And I was like, that's what I love. Why on earth am I straying from that? And so I almost completely reset the palette and said, okay, what do I want based on what I love? And that's how we came up with what it looked like at the end of the day.
Which was beautiful. Did Liam have any involvement with the styling?
Yeah, a little. The good thing is we've got very similar styles. He wasn't originally a fan of the blue, which is, I think, a big part of why I strayed from it initially. I am a big blue fan. My bridesmaids wore blue. We had pops of blue in the flowers and everything. He wasn't initially a fan of it. So I think it was bringing him on that journey a little bit. I had to persuade a bit more. But no, aside from that, like the furniture, the lighting, everything else was super easy to agree on because, yeah, it's a lot of us as a couple and what our house looks like.
So looking back, what was the tiniest detail you obsessed over that makes you laugh now?
God, what was it? I think, embarrassingly, the piece that I obsessed over way too much was the plates. I can't tell you why. I am not actually sure myself, but I felt like the plate itself had so much to say about me as a person that, yeah, I obsessed over it. I thought about each different plate that we had on offer and what each of them said about me as a person. So think what you will based on the plate that I ended up choosing.
What did the plate say about you as a person?
The plate I chose, it was gorgeous. It was organic. It was speckled. It was really stunning. That's not what I think about me as a person. The way it said that I
Beautiful
was a
and
bit
speckled.
fun, a bit quirky. Beautiful and speckled. No, it was just a bit quirky, a bit earthy. So very down to earth. Yeah, that girl was crazy. I don't know her.
As long as the plate told a story, then we're good.
Yeah. The plate wasn't even the only thing that had a story behind it. There were so many other things like the forks and the glasses. It was a whole thing. It's very embarrassing now that I look back at that.
A lot of brides say the same thing. So many brides do. Like, they're like, I obsessed over the color of the napkins way too much. Like, I didn't care about the napkins on the day. I cared about this. And why on earth was I obsessing over, and it's good to have an idea and the overall vision and the mood of the day with the styling. You don't want it to look terrible, but it's something that brides do obsess over and think that is really important at the time. But looking back on their wedding experience, there were so many other things that they really loved and they didn't even think twice about the napkins or the plates, and nobody's going into the wedding going, these plates don't seem like Rachel at all. They don't speak her truth.
Exactly. And it's so funny, on the day, I didn't even notice the plates. I could not, if you asked me on the day what plates were there, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And it wasn't until I looked at photos last night that I was like, yeah, those plates were cute.
If you had an extra $5,000 in your budget, what would you have spent it on?
Flowers, without a doubt. Yeah, I think one of those things, flowers, I feel like would have just oomphed it a little bit more. But again, it was really hard to bring Liam on that journey to kind of explain just how much you need for flowers. So I think we did what we could with the budget that we had. But if I had an extra 5K, I would have blown it all on flowers.
And Liam was holding you back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll have words with him later about this.
Was there a moment in the day that caught you completely off guard?
Not so much off guard. We ended up just going with the flow with it. But for our first dance, we were having it outside under that gorgeous tree that they've got at Earth House. And it was all coming together. We had everyone outside. I hobbled out there. Either Liam carried me or it was crutches at that point in time. I'm not sure. I was a few margaritas deep, to be completely transparent. But yeah, went to go have our first dance and the speakers just weren't working. So we had no music and we were all just kind of huddled out there. Our gorgeous guests were in a circle and Liam and I were in the center and we were just kind of taking it all in at that point. It ended up being one of the most beautiful parts of the day because I don't know who started it. I don't know how it happened, but one of our guests started humming and singing and clapping to For the Longest Time by Billy Joel. And it was just the most beautiful part. Everyone joined in and that ended up becoming our first dance song. So it caught me off guard because first of all, hadn't even thought of that song as an option. But secondly, that everyone just came into it and everyone was involved and Liam and I still had our first dance without a hiccup. And it was just, yeah, something that was completely unexpected, but I absolutely loved.
So back to the planning side of things. Was there a point where you felt like the planning had completely taken over your life?
Good question. I think the planning kind of took over at the point where you have to try and land all of your vendors as soon as possible. It feels so competitive when you're booking a wedding that someone else is going to take your day, especially when you're having your wedding on at high season. So we were in September, which is incredibly competitive in itself because it's such a gorgeous time of year down in Byron. But yeah, we were just trying to go through each of the different vendors and what options we had. So trying to pick music and trying to pick a celebrant and, makeup artists, all of those things that kind of just took over our lives. But yeah, it felt like so many major decisions and so much money coming out of our account that it just felt all consuming at that point.
Was there a vendor or decision that completely exceeded your expectations?
Andy, definitely. Well, yourself, obviously.
I'll pay you later.
Yeah. You were incredible given everything that we had to overcome in the lead up to. But Andy, we absolutely adored. He was our celebrant and he is just an incredible human being with just so much authenticity. He made everything in the lead up super easy, but then also on the day, everyone loved him. It was like having an extra guest at the wedding that everyone just got around and had chats with. And yeah, he was fully part of it.
He is an absolute legend. We love Andy.
We love Andy. Shout out to Andy.
Was there one thing that grounded you when it all started to feel too big?
Yes, probably two things. The first is my gorgeous husband, Liam. He is my rock through all things, and the wedding was no exception to that. The second is I was incredibly lucky at the time. My best friend, Bridie, was actually planning her own wedding at the same time. So we had our weddings about 2-3 months apart. So I think to have someone going through it with you, it almost grounded you back into reality just by being able to soundboard things and to talk through, the choices that we had to make and the decisions that were thrown our way throughout it. I think it made everything feel so much better just to have the people that you love there with you.
Did you feel at any point that if you didn't have her, it would have been a lonelier experience going through it?
I actually love that question because actually from your reel that you posted yesterday, it actually made me realize that I wasn't lonely. I'm one of the very lucky brides that weren't lonely in that process because I had her. And likewise, I hope she felt the same way that she had me, but to be going through it with someone, obviously other than your husband or fiance, it really meant a lot because we were able to lean on each other. So yeah, I feel incredibly lucky. And if there were able to be some community. And I'm sure this podcast itself would help people from not feeling so lonely during that incredibly insane time of your life.
Was there any moments where you thought, why does no one talk about this part of wedding planning?
I think the part that I was wondering the most about, and I was like, has anyone else gone through this? Was when we were initially looking at venues. And I think it was that initial point after we got engaged and right as we were starting planning the wedding that everything was running through my head. It was so overwhelming at that point in time. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where we wanted to go or what kind of wedding we wanted to have. And it wasn't until I just booked a couple of venues, because Liam was not relating to this at all. He's like, it's fine. Like, don't even worry about it. And I was like, okay, very unhelpful, but thank you. And it wasn't until we went to our first wedding venue where we went and had a look around and it was gorgeous. And then on the drive back, Liam's pummeling me with all of these questions like, what are we going to do about this? And where are we going to stay? What do we want to have? Who do we want to be there? And I was like, yeah, welcome. Like, this is everything that's been running through my head. So to finally have him kind of realize that, I was like, I wonder if anyone else has had this.
The beginning stages, and I say this to couples all the time, that the venue and the date is the biggest commitment apart from getting engaged.
Yeah.
But when you're planning a wedding, committing to the date and the venue is the hardest decision. And that's why so many couples drag their feet so much with deciding that point. Once you do that, though, with the right help, everything falls into place quite easily, because that pressure on the setting and the date isn't there. You're like, oh, I get to like have a look at photos and celebrants, and, you know, like, rather than thinking, what's the whole wedding going to look like at this location? And it's so much pressure. Does this tell our story? And is this the right decision? And it's so common with couples, and that's why it feels like such a big deal at the beginning. And it is a big deal, but it's what people struggle on the most, I find.
Yeah, but you're so right. The venue, particularly because we weren't tied to anywhere, we didn't have any emotional connection to anywhere in Brisbane or anywhere else. So kind of the world was our oyster at that point in time. So to try and land on even a particular region we wanted to go with it was a lot.
Did you look outside of the Byron area when you were doing your research?
Yeah, I did. We looked a bit everywhere. So we obviously had a few venues in Brisbane we were looking at, some on the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast. We were keen to stay in that Southeast Queensland area or Northern New South Wales. Considered also Victoria as well, because a lot of my family is down there. But yeah, I think all in all, the Byron area was kind of like a destination wedding for everyone at that point. And we stayed down there a lot with our friends. So I think for us, it kind of felt more natural that we were in the place that we love.
And what about it spoke to you guys?
I think it is stepping away from the city in particular. Both of us have intense jobs, so feel quite consuming when we're in Brisbane, because you can basically see your workplace from whenever I walk down the road or go for a run or whatever it might be. Yeah, our friends have a place down in Casuarina, so we've spent a lot of time down there over the years and absolutely love it, just for how it feels like you're slowing down and relaxing and getting to almost retreat back into yourself. So yeah, I think that's why we ended up going with Byron, is because it is close to that area. On top of that as well, it had so many gorgeous venues to offer. There was such an incredible talent pool of vendors down there that we were able to then tap into that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to if we went outside of that space.
And once you set the date and you chose the venue, did you find a sense of relief, and did the pressures reduce from there? Or were you going into it going, oh my God, this is bigger than Ben-Hur and I need some help here?
Definitely on the help side. I think that was the point where we recruited you, because we're like, oh God, there's so many details now that I need to think of that I hadn't beforehand. So yes, there was definite feel for recruiting help, but at the same time, it was really exciting to be able to land our date and to land our dream venue. Like, our date itself was 5 years from the night that we met. So it was actually quite important to us to have it on that day. It felt really beautiful in itself.
What was your favorite part of the day?
So after the ceremony, I'm not saying the photo part, that was hell. The family photos and trying to get all of those out and people congregated around, that was tough. But the part after that, it was right before we went into the reception, I was switching from having two sneakers on to going a sneaker and the moon boot. And the moon boot, we dressed up in disco tiles and ribbons and made it just like its own artwork, basically. But I think from that moment on, we just cut loose. Like, we had so much fun with it. We were dancing, we were singing, and we danced the night away and just had so much fun. It was insane.
By that stage, you would have had a few cocktails under your belt and a disco moon boot going into the reception, and it would have just been on from there.
Yeah, exactly right. Something that was very important to me in particular was having a good list of cocktails. So we had the margaritas to kick us off with. For dinner, I think we had a Cosmo or something that was gorgeous and fruity. And then as soon as we opened up for the dance floor, we had the espresso martinis come out, and that just fueled the dance floor like nothing else.
If you could shout one thing from the rooftops to every couple planning right now, what would it be?
Oh, good question. What would it be? Oh, there's so many things. What do I choose?
Give me a few things. You don't have to just land
Okay.
on one.
I've got a list: photography and videography. Both mine and my husband Liam's memories are absolute goldfish. Being able to watch it back and almost relive it and see all of the gorgeous parts, like our friends' speeches, or I did a first look with my dad, and being able to just jog your memory with those little nudges, I just think is so important now looking back on the day. Like, I love our photographer and the videographer that we went with. They were both incredible and also super accommodating when I was hobbling around and not able to do very much. They made it look just absolutely incredible. So those two for sure. I think another thing that we were stuck on was menu and drinks. And how we ended up making those decisions was literally just thinking about, okay, if we were going out on a date, what would we choose to eat? And that's it. That's what we went with. We're like, we're not picky eaters. There's nothing exciting going on here. What would we choose? What looks amazing, which was pretty much everything based on the menu you gave us. But yeah, we just made the decision that way.
Any advice that you would recommend to couples that are deep in their planning at the moment? Golden pieces of nuggets.
Golden pieces of nuggets. Frequent dates. We found we would naturally just talk about the wedding and accidentally plan a whole bunch of things just by going out on dates every fortnight.
Were there any date nights where the wedding planning was completely off limits, or did you find that it was all consuming throughout the whole time and that's all you spoke about?
It was all I spoke about with my best friend. I know that much. We couldn't talk about anything else other than weddings. But for Liam and I, when we were on date nights, I think at the point where we were trying to lock in all of our vendors and make the major decisions was the part where we had to kind of set that boundary and not talk about it on date nights. But then when we got closer to it, between that 6-8 month mark where you're kind of working out the finer details, that's where we had those natural conversations where we were really excited about it and just wanted to kind of think about every little thing.
What was the hardest part of the planning for you?
Aside from the obvious breaking of the leg, I think the hardest part for me was actually the comparison to other people. I found, whether it be through Pinterest or through seeing what other friends' weddings were like, I became incredibly immersed in what my wedding said about me and what it was telling other people, that I was more worried about what people would think than I was of how I felt about the day myself. And I found that really hard to grapple with. I found it almost inauthentic to myself, where I was just so worried about what it would look like and how it would turn out that I didn't take enough of myself into consideration or almost drop the worry I had about what other people thought.
Was that a pressure that you put on yourself, or did you feel that there was quite a bit of pressure around you, or was it just purely just being on Pinterest for too long?
No, it was definitely something I not only put on myself in that time period, but I always have. Like, I was talking to a mentor yesterday and talking about imposter syndrome, and I had it all through school. I've had it pretty much. I still have it today, is the reality. And it's always something that I've got to work on, is putting too much pressure on myself. And then it just felt heightened during the wedding planning period.
But you were happy with the final result. You said earlier that your image of what you wanted it to be like, you said it was very close. So by the end of it, were you able to fully relax in all of those pressures on the day, knowing that it's exactly how you imagined?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at that point where I went back and did a clean slate of everything that I wanted for the day and the colors and everything, I think that was a really key point for me. No longer caring what other people thought. I feel like that was the no care line in the sand there, where I was like, you know what, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever will be, will be. At the end of the day, I'm marrying the person that I love. And if it doesn't look like Pinterest or it doesn't look like the other people that I'm seeing on Instagram, that is so fine, because it reflects me. It reflects my gorgeous husband. So yeah, I think that ended up superseding those awful little thoughts that I had in my head.
What was that pivotal moment that got you to that point? Was there anything in particular, or did you just stop caring?
Bridie was a key part of that. And my sister, actually, my sister Laura is one of those people that don't care what others think. So whenever I was talking about it or talking about the choices that I made and I was so unsure of them, and I was kind of explaining why I was unsure of them, both of them were able to say, well, why wouldn't you just go with what you want? Like, who cares? It doesn't really matter. So I think those two were the real ones that got me through in that time and showed me that I just need to be authentic to myself.
And is there any advice that you would give anybody else planning a wedding that is second guessing themselves and caught up with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to be vulnerable to the people around you. I think the chances are you've got so many gorgeous people around you to lean on. Don't be afraid to lean on them, because the reality is they want to be leaned on. They want to talk to you. They want to be there for you during this time, and trying to put on a facade doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve them. So let your guard down, tell them how you're feeling, and use them as a soundboard.
You are an absolute inspiration with how you
I
handled
wouldn't go that far.
everything. I absolutely would. And I've seen a lot of couples in the lead up to their wedding, and the way that you handled everything that was thrown at you, especially 6 weeks out, was incredible and truly inspiring. And I feel so blessed to have been a part of your journey, and just seeing you thrive on the day with a sparkly moon boot was just the highlight. I'm just so thankful for you sharing your story.
No, I'm so thankful that I came across you and found you in this crazy world. So thank you so much for being my rock.